start at 7:03. We're going to knock out citizens communication, and then we're going to switch, and then we're going to do approval of minutes. And then we might be moving some things around. So the commission welcomes comment on Parks and Rec items. Public comment that is made on an item is not on the published agenda will not only be heard by the commission. No formal action, discussion, or comment will be made. Each person providing public comment will be limited to 3 minutes and will be asked to state his or her name and address for the public record. Do we have anyone that's here for public comment? Okay. Now we're going to go to the approval of minutes. 3A, discuss and consider action to approve the minutes from the Park and Rec meeting in January, on January 15th, 2026. I'll give you a second to look those over, and then I'll be looking for a motion in a second. You want to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept it. I'll second.
Motion in a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Okay. We are going to go to 5B. Discuss and consider action regarding the Cameron Valley Subdivision Parkland dedication.
Not to do any of the other items either.
Yeah. Just put them on consent.
Skip right through.
Larry, you just want me to drive, or do you want it? You got it?
Do it.
Do.
Scroll wheel.
So this is Parkland dedication. I know we talked about it last time. Feel free to ask staff any questions that you might have as we go through this process. Ultimately, Larry will present the agenda item, staff's recommendation, and then the vendor's development representation is here to answer any questions that y'all potentially have. Y'all will vote on this tonight, and then it'll go to planning and zoning for their approval at the next meeting. So, Larry, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Larry Foose. I'm the Park Development Manager for the Parks and Recreation Department, and we're here tonight to discuss the Cameron Valley Subdivision. And this is an aerial of the project location located at 17716 Stager Lane. And this gives you a little bit of an example how the project will be laid out. Most of it, the yellow, is a little over 50 acres, and that's single family. There's also a little over 9 acres of single-family mixed use, general business in the upper left-hand corner, and then Parks and Rec, park and open space in the blue. This is also an exhibit showing how the dwelling units are laid out along with the streets. Sort of hard to see here, but there is a trail that goes through what the previous slide blue section was. And then there's they got sidewalks on both sides of the streets and other amenities planned as well. Again, there's 206 dwelling units in the single family section. And this is a slide showing the proximity to existing parks, and it's 2.8 miles to the east of Lake Pflugerville Park. And there's another subdivision down there too that's got a pretty good section of trails. And the proposed amenities listed here, you can see those for yourself. There's some sports courts. They've talked about pickleball, basketball, soccer space, playgrounds, the pool. The trail is going to be a 10-foot trail. There's a secondary trail that's also planned for the project as well. Fitness center, including outdoor fitness and a swimming pool. Again, this is another exhibit. This shows better, like the blue are the sidewalks, the green is the 10-foot trail, and I believe the red is the secondary trail as well. And this does hook up to another part of an existing trail. So what they're proposing is to pay fee in lieu and, of course, the park dedication fee with the 206 dwelling units from single family and single family mixed use, another 110 dwelling units based on the development acres, comes out to two amounts for fee in lieu of $177,724.80, $85,377.60. That's fee in lieu instead of the required acreage, totaling $263,102.40. And then the park development fee associated with the required acreage is totaling $227,170.
Hey Larry, let's pause there. I know that this is a lot for some of our newer board members because y'all may not have seen this process. Jeff, do you want to explain a little bit what the process is and some of the stuff even we've gotten from Dr. Crompton about philosophy change?
Yeah, I'm gonna move till I can be near a mic. Maybe. I'm just gonna sit next to you.
There's mics over there.
Why don't I do?
We're ready to go.
Here, how about you switch? Here, switch.
I'm good now.
Okay.
There we go.
We figured it out. Yeah, so our Parkland dedication codes within the Unified Development Code basically are ensuring that we have park and recreation amenity access where growth is happening. And so in this case in particular, and the engineers can speak to why they're requesting to pay the fee in lieu of parkland. But what they essentially could have done is either dedicate parkland within the subdivision, or you opt to pay the fee in lieu, and that's this body's decision whether to approve or deny recommendation of that. We have started to move away from asking and requiring that we have neighborhood parks in a lot of these spaces unless they're owner maintained, HOA maintained, simply because of operations and maintenance costs. We've brought on Dr. John Crompton to help us. We're reviewing our UDC right now, and he has had to, he is the preeminent voice in Parkland dedication across the world, honestly. But he's spoken internationally, but he's the godfather of Parkland dedication. He has advocated for decades for neighborhood parks and all these spaces in as many neighborhoods as possible. And the 10-minute walk campaign, making sure that people are within a 10-minute walk of a park. But because of some of the, I don't even know what you call it.
Legislation, honestly.
Guardrails that the legislature has put on us with property tax caps, paying for the O&M on smaller facilities across the city, especially in spots where we don't have very many parks. So we would be sending a crew 2.8 miles outside of Lake Pflugerville is not always necessarily feasible. So it sort of puts cities in a position to either choose between larger pieces of land or taking money instead so that we can further develop community parks that are at least somewhat close to that.
And that's
facility.
important as a context. Preeminent guy, Texas A&M professor, has been doing this for years and advocating for years that you take small parcels, you make them neighborhood parks, you put the O&M costs into maintaining these. But as Jeff was saying, it's right now, is it 3.5 currently cap?
The property tax cap, 3.5% cap.
So right now it's 3.5%. So a city like us, a faster growing city, could grow 8%, 10%, 12%. But the state says you cannot raise the tax for that city above 3.5% unless you go out to a vote. If you go out to a vote, you can raise it to whatever potential fee
Your
you
property
want.
tax revenues. So
Right.
even though we're growing, your property tax revenues year over year can't be more than 3.5%.
Right. So in a landlocked city, I think a lot of times, and I use the example of Bel Air in Houston, it's landlocked. It's within the city limits of Houston. It can't grow anymore. It can't add a bunch more residential. A 3.5% or 3.5% cap isn't too onerous for that community in figuring out what growth looks like. But for a city that's fast growing, it's 8% one year, it's 6% one year, it could be 12% one year. Then that's 12% of streets, that's 12% of public safety, that's 12% of all this other infrastructure that you have to put. But the whole agency, the whole organization can only raise it at 3% unless we go out to a vote. And so all of a sudden you're talking about not just maintaining, but you're taking away library services or Parks and Rec services, or you're cutting something here or there to stay under that 3.5% cap. And there is discussion that the 3.5% cap could go down to potentially even 2.5% in the future. And so the premier advocate for getting land when you can get it, they're not making any more of it, has pivoted completely and said, don't take small parcels anymore. Encourage developers to continue to build those small parcels and have amenities, and they're doing that type of thing for that community. But don't take them as an agency, because you can't afford the O&M costs, the operations and maintenance costs associated with the staff and the vehicular and the gas and the maintenance and repairs associated with all these small parcels.
And the reason we can't afford the O&M is because of that cap.
Yeah. And you could take it to a vote, and votes are great. It's what this whole country was built on. The only unfortunate thing about a vote in that capacity is we have 75,000. We just recently had a mayoral election, and I don't think 10% voted. I don't know if 7,000 people voted. So, you're going to run up against, you say, maybe the city says, you know what, we need an 8% raise in our
Staffing.
yeah. And so we show an 8% raise in our budget, so we got to take that to a vote. But not everyone that's actually going to appreciate that shows up and votes at that vote. And then all of a sudden it doesn't happen. It gets brought back down to 3.5%. So cities try not to go to that vote. So they try to stay under that 3.5%. And so you've seen this complete pivot in leadership where we used to try to take on these great little pocket parks and create these really nice spots where someone can go and they don't have a restroom and they don't have a parking lot, but kids and families can play and gather there. And then when they need those types of amenities, they just run back to the house real quick. And we've built a whole park system. We have 34 playgrounds, 35 parks, and a lot of it's built on the concept of pocket parks, and incredible little pocket parks that we've invested playground replacements and shade, and we've put them at the edges of trail connections, and they're really these magical spots. But you're going to see us as a staff come to y'all and make recommendations that we probably don't do that. Now y'all have every right to say, no, we still want to do that, have staff figure that out, or maybe even go to those votes. And in that case, if y'all do decide to vote against staff recommendation at any time, when it goes to planning and zoning, there's usually a discussion where staff made this recommendation. Whoever y'all's chair is that y'all will vote on tonight will represent y'all and say, this is why we decided this. Regardless of issues with money or voting concerns, we just care about land acquisition, whatever it is, right? And so you just have one person from each side speak to that, and then ultimately planning and zoning votes, decides to accept staff's recommendation or parking commission's recommendation, and then they move forward.
And to be clear, there are still requirements for a certain number of amenities in new developments so that they still have something, so that it's not a complete offload of a bunch of new residents onto existing park facilities. It's just oftentimes, sometimes maybe those are public facilities that are maintained by that HOA or that development, but oftentimes those are going to end up being private amenities, simply because if they're paying for it, they have the opportunity to make those private. I will say, with all that being said, the development teams here, they might be able to explain and articulate a little bit better what they're thinking on the amenities side. But for the ask here, and that should be taken into account in your decision making, but the ask here and the recommendation of staff is accepting the dedication, the Parkland fee in lieu of Parkland, and then the development fee.
Yeah, could you go back to the slide that had the amenities? 'Cause I think those were listed on the previous slide, right?
Yeah, I think those are potential amenities, but they might be able to
Speak to their intentions. And I think it's
Can
very
you go back?
important.
Larry's having a lot of trouble.
There you go.
I think it's very
Potentially a
important.
stroke.
Any
potentially.
neighborhood in Pflugerville that y'all go into and you don't see a pocket park, you don't see a trail, you don't see an HOA spot, understand at one time, those people sat in your seat and they decided to take money instead of land. And I think this development would have had about 6 acres or so. Is that right around that number?
A little
That
under
would have
5.
been, would have been required But staff's making a recommendation, we take the money instead, put it into a pot that we already have, and we use that in adjacent parks, improve those parks, and we can do all that with this fund as well. A lot of our playground replacements, we've used this fund to replace playgrounds, to replace shade, to do improvements with stuff. So that's the great thing about this money, is that it does still go into the park system. It doesn't go as land, it goes in as Parkland dedication fee. But every single development, unless it was one that came before our Parkland dedication, would have had to decide at one point, was it gonna give land or was it gonna give money? And, this community that you're approving to go through this process and ultimately the planning and zoning, you wanna make sure you think of it holistically. Will these things be enough? And staff's recommendation is they are, And if y'all don't feel like they are, that's where we have this conversation before it goes planning and zoning. You want to bring them on?
Yeah, do you have a question, Christian? About
You have a
this?
question, Christian?
Yeah, I was gonna, you guys can go give your spiel.
Yeah, we just, obviously, we've got the floodplain running through the middle of the development. And so that basically creates an opportunity to create a really unique parkland environment for the community. So we are going to be investing in it. The reason we're keeping it private is because we're not sure. It may one day be a public park, but we're not sure right now how the communities, how it's going to work with the community. And because it goes through the middle of the site, it's it's risky for us to not have control over what goes in there. And obviously we've got the idea being that we've got the retail on the corner. The retail lives out onto the parkland, and the residential also lives out onto the parkland. So it creates a
retail
open
here,
space.
right? Is that where retail is? Or is it
No, retail's other corner.
right here?
No, well, plan view top left.
Top
Up here?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where retail
Further over. Oh,
Oh,
one more over.
yeah,
It's on
that-
the.
yeah,
That's
there-
a right,
that's-
right there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
So the idea is to have restaurants that live out onto the floodplain, which we want to redevelop, and we're working with the city to redevelop it. And all those amenities, I can't guarantee that every single one of those amenities is going to be there. We have experience building highly amenitized communities, and we can show you guys some of our work. And it is going to be a beautiful, to be competitive in this market, you need to offer something different. We've got Lennar next door, they produce like a really affordable product, so we have to be very competitive. And part of our competitive edge is that we've got this beautiful green space through the middle of the site that we're going to redevelop into a usable space.
And it's a recruitment and retention, for the folks that are buying those homes, obviously. And is that you've got these playground and these amenities right where you're building it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions specifically for the development team?
Yeah, I was curious because I know you said potential amenities on there. I guess, is there any idea of where those amenities would go and like which ones are? I mean, I'm sure you're not going to get that whole list, but is there?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to go back to the other map, so a lot. The
other one's better. The other.
This one?
Keep going down.
There.
The one with the colored trails. Keep going down. That one. Yeah. So you can obviously see the floodplain there. That's going to be mostly your trails. I mean, there might be some other potential items there, but for the most part, that's your trails. But then you're kind of seeing another box there. That's another, just like at the edge of that street, that kind of dead end right there. That's going to be where you're going to see some of the playgrounds and some other amenities in there.
And that's part of the residentially zoned area. So we're actually increasing the amount of sort of call it parkland space than what is it actually zoned for.
Is that 100-year or 500-year floodplain?
So that right there, it's kind of tricky to see. So there's a 100-year dashed line that kind of has that little like loop that goes into the commercial. That line itself, that is FEMA's 100-year. But then there's a little more solid line interior to that, based off the topo out there and how defined that channel is. It's actually one of those rare cases where the Atlas 14 flows is inside the FEMA floodplain.
Oh, wow.
So it's rare, but it does happen because it's so defined. And so you're able to actually gain some area back there, and we're proposing to do a loamer at the end of the development.
And for everyone, just for floodplain is the portion of land that has a flood risk to it. You usually don't put vertical structures in there. That's where you put playgrounds and trails and things like that. You try to keep things off floodplain and floodway, depending on what can or can't go in. And so a lot of our park system is floodplain or floodway land. Like most of Pfluger Park, for example, is land that you couldn't have put a home on. It's a great park to gather, to have community activities, to play on a playground, etc. So
For everyone that hasn't seen something like this before, I think one thing that's not super relevant for this decision, but I think it's important to note, we have had a trails master plan for a long time. We redid that last year with our mobility master plan, so it was incorporated into basically the transportation master plan. And so all that public engagement and all that work with the consulting team, they created the future trail network. And most of that is not constructed by the city, it's constructed by development as it comes in. And that can be commercial or residential development. And so that process that we went through last year, this is why it's so important. So as this development comes in and the neighboring developments come in, that trail connection that we hold so dear continues as we start to develop. So that's a requirement of the developers, that they put in that trail that they were just mentioning.
people may ask you, hey, why does the trail just die here? As a commissioner. And that's because that development carried the trail as they were required to the end of their property line. And there is a future development coming once it's sold and is approved for development, and they will pick that trail up and continue it. What they're doing is they're going to be building the trails that are required potentially to connect to the system. And so a lot of that stuff's worked out. It's all baked in the ordinance and making sure that we've thought about these things. So when y'all come here today, y'all know that trail connections are going to happen. You know those things are going to happen. You know that you have a decision to make. Would you want them to say they have to provide lands and then they have to pull out things, homes or retail here, and that may dip into their overhead. They may just say this is not something we can do. There was a reason they obviously have made the decision to do fee and lieu, right? And then, or do you go with fee or lieu, which is back to this, where we're going to get potentially right around $500,000 total in parkland dedication and parkland development fees that'll go into an account that we can use in that zone or neighboring park system for improvements, trail connections, shade, playgrounds, etc.
Where do those numbers come from in lieu of saying, a half an acre is worth 200,000, or how did y'all come up with those numbers?
It's all part of the ordinance.
It's in the UDC, so there's a calculation, and he's got it right there. It takes into account development acres, the number of dwelling units, and then our cost per acre, which has not been updated for a long time. You are doing this at the right time. Is $43,560. Yeah, and that's being updated in the UDC right now, UDC update. And so it's not super complicated, but it's a little more complicated than just whatever acres.
The general idea behind the complicated part is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 of us here at this table. If this was the town of Pflugerville and there was 10 people and we had 10 acres, we have this 1-to-1 ratio, 1 resident for every acre. And then these two gentlemen build homes, and now their 12 residents are sharing these 10 acres. Now we feel squeezed. So parkland dedication requires them to provide their 2 acres, right? So then we're back to 12. So that's the whole thought process behind parkland dedication is new development comes in and they pay for their impact. So they're not offloading onto our current system. Now, if you don't take land, they obviously do potentially offload into our system. But what we say is we have this incredible system that can take some offloading, and we can take money and instead continue to invest in this system, and we can put more shade, and we can make sure connections are there, playgrounds have been replaced, or some other amenity. And the great thing about that process is they're still providing a space for their people to offload. They still have these private amenities that we're not maintaining with O&M costs that their community will live in, will play in. And they will obviously use the rest of the park system as well. We want them to. They'll be residents of Pflugerville. We want them to be proud of the park system. But they're not going to come in and all of a sudden you're feeling like, oh man, they've just had this huge impact, because they still have their spaces, their community spots within that neighborhood that they're not offloading onto y'all's, right? So the private piece that they're doing hopes to take care of that, and then they're still paying potentially up to around $500,000 into this fund that we will then use to do improvements in the park system.
Shane, to that point, and maybe it's a question for you or the engineering team, you mentioned that y'all ascertained that it's enough, that the amenities that they're offering are enough for their residents. Can we speak more to how that was determined?
Yeah, I'm sure they can talk about it. And the tough part about this is, unlike everything else in the development of a neighborhood, the developers don't get to say, this is kind of where the wastewater will go, this is kind of where the streets will go. But unfortunately, we hit them so early in this process, because the fact of the matter is they've probably negotiated with the land agent. They have a certain amount of time that they're on contract. And now what they're trying to do is, with that time that they're on contract, work with the city to see if the city is going to allow them to do the development, and then they can start doing that thing. So they have to talk about the amenities they do have an intention on putting, but at the end of the day, they've got to make sure they get all the homes they have and the retail they have. And so that's why they're saying these are all potential, because some of that can change. Unlike streets and roads and water and infrastructure that they will have to lay out at some point in the planning process, the parks are a little bit more nuanced in some ways, and the amenities are as well. So with that in mind.
Yeah, so I think the biggest indicator that we are going to be in compliance, we're going to provide enough amenities, is that your requirements require that we put up 6 acres of dedicated land, and what we're doing is we're putting in, I think it's like 9 acres, right? Because the floodplain only counts as half in that calculation you did. So we're putting approximately, round numbers, 9 acres, which is a lot more than what is required. That's obviously got to do with the floodplain and the fact that our main amenity area sort of just worked well within the residential. So I think for a community like this, if you look around, there's a lot more parkland than would traditionally be in a Lennar or Pulte type development.
Gotcha.
And whatever they put in, they're going to highlight. They're going to build blank number of homes, 500 homes, or they're going to tell these folks that are buying these homes or these apartments or these dwelling units, we've got a volleyball court or a pickleball court or basketball court. We've got these types of things, and that's why you want to buy here instead of Lamar or whatever. Is they want you in this space, and so they're going to do an amenity center and dog parks and some of those things because they're great selling points for why someone would want to buy into the community. It's just that we're not maintaining or managing those. They're going to do it, and that's great for us. It's also great for them, because if we mow once a month and someone goes out to buy a home and they see grass that's high, they're going to say, I'm not interested. But if they're mowing it every week, right, then it's an appearance that they're wanting to give off. It's the framing they want people to understand when they're buying those homes. And so we see that a lot. We see HOA boards manage facilities that eventually the city would take over, but until build out, they wanted to mow and maintain because they wanted to make sure it looked as manicured as possible, so you're willing to buy the home, right? And so we've seen other developments do that.
And the nearest city-owned park would be what, Lake Pflugerville?
Looks like Lake Pflugerville.
Lake Pflugerville Park, 2.8
Yeah, and
miles.
you can see there's not a lot of development out there right now.
1849.
How far out how far away can the money go, I guess, essentially? You said there's a certain distance.
Right now it's a little convoluted. There's a lot of zones, and you're allowed to spend in that zone,
Okay.
or you're allowed to spend in a community park. So we could spend in the lake, for example, because the lake's a community park. Any park that has parking lot and a restroom and is a large park can get these funds.
Gotcha.
We are working off a recommendation with Dr. Crompton to make our zones much simpler. basically it'll go from, how many do we have right now?
12.
12 to 3. They'll be north of Pflugerville Parkway, south of Pflugerville Parkway, those will be 2 zones, and then east of I-30 will be a zone in and of itself. And so then anything, whether it's community park or neighborhood park in that zone, can receive these funds. So it makes it where a lot more people, a lot more park parcels have an opportunity to receive those funds.
Oh, will this help Cameron Road get a little flatter at some point?
Maybe. I think there is a flattening of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they are repaving it.
I haven't been there a lot.
49's really-
Yeah,
I've been kind of
everything at
avoiding it for
1849 is
that.
real nice now.
Do we know, so where the red is where the proposed area is?
Mm-hmm.
What over there is already for home development? Do we know?
What are the nearest developments over there, Larry?
There's, where the lower
You
left-hand
wanna-
corner is, where that, like right over here, there's new homes going in, there's homes going up every day. So this one's fairly new. And that's definitely the closest one and the most recent. Not real sure, everything else is, I think, in the planning, early planning stages.
1845 is right middle south of that. Right, yeah, right. It's south of that. That's where Carmel is, right? It's where Wise High School and all
Does
that's over
that community that's being built on right now have parks for public use? Or did they do a fee in lieu of, or do?
there. Oh, the one below?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question. Larry, do you know that?
I've been out there, well, it's been a couple of months, there's definitely a trail system out there. And at least one amenity center and some playgrounds, at the very least. I don't know about a pool,
Are those for public or are those for that community?
that's for that community.
So
Trail's public.
we're
Yeah.
going to talk about this too when we talk about our 5-year CIP. We include land acquisition dollars, typically in a bond, which we expect to be upcoming. And so when we get a pot of money, so if we continue to have development out there, the land acquisition dollars can purchase the land, and then the development dollars and fee in lieu that we've received can be used to develop it. So there's not a lot of parks out there right now because there's not a lot of development or anything else happening. But as it starts to further develop, we can identify pieces of land to purchase.
That's my question, is how many are currently being built on or in the near future being built on versus how many are taking the in lieu of fees instead of
Yeah.
the parks?
Right now, I think it's a lot of in lieu of, but that's also like for juniors team a good thing because if they had to go all the way out there to manage.
I
public
simply
parks-
think too, though, to that question specifically, there's just not a lot of development
No,
out
I
there.
don't know.
Right? I mean,
But the
it's,
developments that are out there have been
it's
in lieu, I think.
they're a little.
How much farther does city limits go, and then the ETJ after that? Or are we
ETJ
right on
goes
that?
all the way out to New Sweden.
Well, I mean, and that is the city limit line right there, that green
That
line.
dark green one?
So
Okay.
north of that is ETJ.
But that 1849 potentially has an opportunity. ETJ, the rules on the ETJ have changed, so they have to want to be annexed. So it's not as guaranteed as it used to be. But 1849 Park, if you look at the ETJ map, potentially has a central component to it, where it's almost right in the middle of what the city of Pflugerville could look like at full build out. If all the people in the ETJ, disclaimer, all wanted to be annexed. So that this could, since 1849 Park is just due south of this potentially is right in the middle of what the city could be in the next 30 to 50 years.
But to your question, that is a good question that should be asked. Because you are planning for future development.
absolutely.
What parks exist.
Absolutely. But with the cap the way it is and where legislation's going, to the fact that they may even get rid of property tax. I don't even know how we're funding cities if they do that in some ways. It's one of those things that we've been talking with the best minds we could, and unless it's a big parcel property, we can make it a community park. We're working with developers to not take that, to support their efforts to build HOA type private amenities and then have public trails. So every development area has their own private parks, public trails, and then we are hyper-focusing in the future on community parks that people can go enjoy and not so much on pocket parks. Y'all have other questions for us or for the development team before y'all feel comfortable on voting on this? So the motion before you will be to accept staff's recommendation to approve fee in lieu and Parkland development payments as you see on the screen. I would need at some point a motion and a second. We can discuss further the motion and the second once we get to that phase. But I'll need a motion and a second before we move on.
I'll make a motion to approve the fee in lieu and park development payments.
Okay?
Sick.
Okay. Do y'all have any further discussion on this motion? The motion is to accept staff approval of the fee in lieu and Parkland development payments as presented here. Okay, then we can go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Abstaining? Okay, motion passes 6-1 or 6-0. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Good luck with everything. Most of our Parkland dedication conversations won't be that in-depth, but it was a way, I know that we had offered, and we probably will do some sort of workshop retreat where we can dive into this more, but I wanted y'all to fully understand what y'all were voting on. This is part of the really cool part of being, not only do y'all get to be advocate for parks, which we appreciate, but y'all are here to make sure that this city is growing the way y'all want it to grow, trails, park growth, etc. And we're just here to say, we agree with you. The previous board that I inherited when I first got here 7 years ago was a zealot for land. Zealots. And they wanted every piece of land you could have. And I didn't disagree with that. But it's really tough for our team to maintain it all. We haven't, Junior, you haven't, I mean, we've had staff growth, but we haven't had staff growth in a long time. I mean, you haven't added a new crew in 4 years, 3 years?
I think since 21, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, the park system's growing. I think it was 1,500 acres when I got here. It's 1,900 acres now. The trail system went from 50, I think it was 51 miles of trail when I got here. We're over 70 now. And so, the playgrounds have been replaced, which actually makes life a little easier because they're not having to maintain all these older pieces of playground. But we've increased the restrooms, we've increased the park system. We're adding new incredible amenities, whether it's the sports court or the Ninja Warrior course or the outdoor workout station, these types of great things that I think the community really enjoys. But Junior's team hasn't grown.
Yeah.
You know, the budget really hasn't grown, and it can't because, I mean, we've actually lost. We went from $12.5 million 2 years ago. Our budget's around $10 million this year. And that's just one of those things that I'm sure council would love to give me $50 million, and I'm sure city leadership would love to give us $50 million. They'd love to give Junior 15 more crews. But at some point, that 3.5%, you hit your head on it. And PD has to grow, and other groups have to grow. And so,
We'll make those fees grow.
yeah.
Right, I was gonna ask, like, because I know, and maybe I missed this from the last UDC meeting that.
Y'all are on, right?
Correct.
But I mean, I'm curious about how that discussion is going in terms of updating our like fee and lieu calculations. Because
Yeah, we're updating it currently, and then it'll be brought to the committee.
is there any sort of like cap on what we can do on that? I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
we
you
want
have
to
to-
we don't want to disincentivize people from trying to.
Yeah,
It's not a
you can be
specific-
pretty, yeah.
It's not a specific cap, and you may have missed the last one. We had John Crompton come and speak.
In my defense, they sent out a like reminder like before the holidays.
Yeah. It has to do with, and this is going to be way beyond my ability to articulate it, but it has to do with what's called rough proportionality and the nexus principle.
Yep.
And so it is about,
Yeah, if you want to go to sleep, start researching.
yeah, read that. I got some stuff, some textbooks John Crompton has written for you to read. Essentially, what that means is that you have to match the requirement
to the impact of that development, which is why you have a calculation. And then the city can require that our level of service is maintained. And so there's not necessarily a cap, but there is a point where a city could have such a rich calculation that it's past what you can justify using those principles.
Because that development
And
group,
so-
they're not looking to work in Pflugerville, they're looking to work on parcels of land, wherever it may be. So that development group finds parcels of land, 50 acres or whatever, they probably have some metrics that they're looking for within some sort of city limits, 50 acres or more, blah, 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 right? And they understand what they need to make their nut, right? They know what they need to do to get what out of it, what they're trying to get into, right? And so they go negotiate with this group, and then they go on contract. So they have a certain amount of time that they can work without having to put any money down. And if the city says, yeah, you can do that development, cool, then they'll actually pay that farmer, for those acres, and they'll start working through this process. But in this 45, 60, 90-day window, they're trying to make as much hay as possible, figuring out if they can pull this thing off. Well, if they come through the process and then they get to here and we say, yeah, it's not $43,000 an acre, it's $43 million an acre, they say, well, we'll go work with another farmer in a different community because we can't afford that, right? And so we could make it as
Or they'll
incredibly...
file a lawsuit and
Right,
challenge
right. We can make it as incredibly high as we want and try to defend it. But we're trying to find a sweet spot where it's more fair. But developers don't say, oh, I'm not going to go develop here. I'm going to develop somewhere else. Because at some point, you're going to look around and say, why aren't there any more homes built? Or why aren't there more development happening? And sometimes it's the economy and some of the things that are happening outside the control of the developers. And sometimes it's the parameters that we put on development, right?
So all that to say, Dr. Crompton's provided us with his recommendation for what our calculation should be.
Is he
And
gonna be
so-
at the next UDC meeting too?
No. I think it's recorded though.
Okay, I have to go find him.
It would be worth watching.
He's an interesting, this is his life's work, so he loves it. We could have let him talk for 17 hours.
There are buildings named after him.
Yeah. Yeah, so once we have that, we'll review that with the consulting team, we will review that with the committee.
I had a good friend of mine, she's the director of Loveland, Colorado. She came down to stay with me and my wife for a couple days. And she was in the office and she asked about Crompton. I was like, he was in that room right next to my office a couple different times. And she was fangirling all over the fact that we had Crompton down. I mean, he's one of those folks that a lot of agencies use as principals. Not everyone gets to work with them. We've been very fortunate.
Every agency uses this principle.
Right, yeah. Just not everyone gets to work with him. Yeah. Some people actually have to read his books. We don't have to. We just ask them the question ourselves. So
A couple of questions. You had mentioned that the previous boards, like a while back, their tendency or their inclination was towards land acquisition.
yeah.
Does that, does that pose a tension with developers? Is there
Yeah.
something that's considered more developer friendly? And is that something we need to manage in terms of being attractive enough for developers, but also thinking about what's good for residents?
Yeah, right now we're probably the most developer friendly we could be because we've got a philosophy now that we're probably changing to that we're not taking on land. And we have a really low cost per acre right now for them. So the developer was very nice saying he was giving you 9 acres or, what worked out to be 9 acres of floodplain.
Yeah.
To be quite fair to them and to every developer ever comes through here, he's giving you every acre he can't develop on.
Right.
Right? If he could build a home on it, we would not be getting it. That's most of our park system, though, right? And so that just is what it is. Most of our park system, I think we had GIS run, it was like 70-something% of our park system is floodplain.
Like they can't do anything else with it, but they're gonna say they're giving it to us.
And we should say too, there's gonna be, and this will be a discussion as we update the UDC, there will be a threshold that we will accept land, actually that we want to accept land. Because to your question and to your point, we don't wanna have no parks out there and then we're just putting millions of dollars in the Lake Pflugerville Park. And so a larger development, they might be required to give us whatever that number is, whether it's 7 or 10, that we won't accept anything less other than, let's say it's 7. If it's less than 7, we're gonna take the money. And if it's more than 7, we're going to require that they they do land. So that now we've got these larger parks then we can use these funds to develop them.
So is that one of the main factors, the size of the development?
Yeah.
And the
But
Yep.
they could potentially buy that next piece over and expand their piece, but to us, it was two different votes.
Yeah, so there's
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you
there's
see what I'm saying?
phasing
Yeah.
in a lot of developments, and that might be a topic of discussion for the UDC. There is some level of like continuity you have to have between phases. Crompton actually talked about that a little bit when he spoke. So we're addressing that. I don't know if it's going to be perfect, but we are addressing that. Because you're right. That could have been a development that would have required 15 acres of land. Yeah.
So Hutto, I'm looking at a text I got from their director from a couple years ago now. They had just had their Parkland formula approved in January of 2024, and they require 15 acres to take land. So if you're giving them land, you have to give them 15 acres of land, which is pretty high, right? Most people on a development that's 50 acres or 30 acres or whatever, they're not going to give you 15 acres of developable land. So everything Hutto's doing is, they're going to be very cash rich. They're going to be very land poor, I think, from looking at stuff like that. And so I was the director in Hutto before I came here. And so I think in some ways to your point, you want to find that sweet spot. We're all trying to find that sweet spot.
On that point, so if they couldn't give you 15 acres, their only option was fee in lieu.
Fee in lieu.
And they were
Fee in lieu.
essentially just approving that if they
Right,
could do it.
and I think it was $2,300 a dwelling unit, depending on how that breaks down. And so that's incredible too, which means you're not gonna see a lot of homes. Eventually, developers are gonna have to develop in Hutto, but what they're gonna do is they're gonna develop in Pflugerville and Kyle and any place else that they can find a cheaper way to develop before they go to Hutto.
And ours is 6 acres?
This one here.
for this one.
Yeah, the requirement was 6, they were giving you 9.
Right.
Yeah, through floodplain, yeah.
And is that, the 6 acres, is that based on a calculation or is that
Yeah,
just minimum, it has to be minimum 6?
it was based on
It's based on
206. Yeah, go
It's
ahead.
based on the development acres, the number of dwelling units, and then the
Okay.
cost per acre.
And is
Now
that
the cost per acre comes in when you do look at the fee in lieu, but their requirement is based on development acres total and the number of
And
dwelling.
if the development is under 3, if the required amount that the development has to give you is under 3, y'all will not see that. That just goes to the staff recommendation. But anything that, like this one says required 4.8 acres or whatever, and then total required 6 acres. If that would have been 3 acres, staff would have made that recommendation because that'd been a very small parcel. But anything that's over 3 acres is required to come to this board for their decision.
Yeah, when you suffer from insomnia, just go read the UDC Parkland dedication chapter, subchapter 14.
Cures it real quick. Okay, now, we had this on the last one and we kicked it. But what I'm doing in this process right now is being both the director and trying to answer questions from a staff standpoint. I'm also managing the meeting. In the future, that will be managed by someone other than me. That will be the chair. And then the chair will have a vice chair in case the chair can't be here. In the past, that was Elise. And if both of them can't be here, I've just stepped in and done that role. And so we're looking for a chair and a vice chair. And we can either do one single motion for both, or we can split these as 2 individual votes. Y'all have every right to do whatever you want. Motions will come through. If a motion is made and there's no second, it'll die on the table. If a motion is made and a second, we can discuss it then and then make a vote on it. If that vote doesn't get 4, we'll need a new motion. So that's the way we'll go.
Who are we missing again tonight?
Nicholas.
Nick was. I thought he said, Jasmine, did he say he was going to be here? Nick was on planning and zoning, and he ran his full term. So he worked on planning and zoning until he expired all his terms. And at one time, he was at least the vice chair. I don't know if he was ever the chair, but I do know at one point he was at least the vice chair for that board as well. And we can kick this another week or another month, and I can continue to do it until we have a full quorum, if y'all like, or full roster of people, if you'd like. It's not any worse for me to handle this than someone else, but at some point, I think y'all want someone managing this.
I think we have, so we don't have a meeting, is it in July that we don't have a meeting?
We don't have one in July.
So there's only 11 meetings throughout the year total.
Yep.
And we're now 2 through.
2 in, yep.
And I've never met Nick, so I don't know.
Yep.
Nothing bad or anything.
Yeah, he may not even want it.
He may not want it. He's also 0 for 2 so far this year. So I think between the 6 of us, we probably should take it on.
I'm on board with that.
Okay, so just facilitating here, does anybody have any interest in being the chair?
Let's make Elise graduate.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to have Elise be chair.
Second.
And write all this down for a moment. So.
Yeah, it sounded like everybody.
We're gonna do
One
Tracy
person.
as a second. Tracy.
The only person that didn't vote was her.
So we have a motion and a second, at least to be chair. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstaining? This is your show now. You have to do the next one.
Jonathan wrote out some of the
Yeah,
Robert's
there's a
rules
cheat
there.
sheet to help you.
Oh, right here?
Yes.
Well, I probably have butchered them and then it's.
Yeah, you might have needed them too.
I'm sure I have. I've needed a lot of help in my career.
So I literally start
Yeah,
right
the-
now.
Completely done with this.
If it helps, flip to the back page.
Where was that hammer pass?
So now we're going for vice chair. Does anyone want to be vice chair? It's a pretty chill position.
You can make him do it because he's not here.
that one if you want.
Okay. So Christian would like to be vice chair. Would anyone make? Oh, did you also?
If Christian wants it, that's fine with me.
Motion to approve.
Would anyone like to make a motion for that?
Yeah, motion to approve.
Or and anyone like to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor of Christian being vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right.
Beautiful.
Well done. Congrats.
All right, Chair. This is
And
introduced for.
now we're moving to section 4 on the agenda, discuss only. So no decisions will actually be made. And for 4A, we're discussing the discussion regarding director's updates, including information about project status updates, upcoming events, and staffing.
Jonathan, take it away.
So, got a lot of events coming up. Jonathan Hansen, Rec Superintendent. Unplug and Explore. That is a series that we do where we take different groups of people to different places across the state. The one that's coming up on the 28th is 6 to 12 age range, and they're going to the Texas Science and Natural History Museum. You also see a lot of PF seniors on there. As a reminder, the PF senior trips, the goal of that is to get them out and about, socializing, experiencing new places, but saving them from having to actually physically drive there. So these trips until our next Parks and Rec Commission meeting saves them 309 miles that they would have had to have driven. We also have Trail Friends coming up at Lake Pflugerville. Feathered Friends is actually doing a really unique thing. You'll see it says Wingspan. I had never heard of this, but it's a game, a board game, where you build a habitat with different cards, and that tries to recruit birds to your habitat. And so each of those birds has a special power. It's a really cool game. It's going to be here at the rec center. So if you'd like to participate, that's going to be a really unique one. Yeah, next slide. Daddy-daughter dance was last weekend, so there's a recap video here for you. At the Lions Club, and so we use their indoor space. You saw in there, this is really unique. It's never happened before, but now that we have a contact, we're going to reach out every year. Miss Austin and Miss Texas came and were there with their sashes and took photos. So that was really cool. They actually reached out to us and were like, "Hey, we'd love to come to this."
The girls were all in.
Yeah, the theme was snowball. 2 words, snow and ball. And so it was Winter Wonderland themed, and there were 260 individual couples of daddy-daughters that showed up.
Is that our highest number?
Yeah, it's a great turnout.
It's like a junior high dance.
Yeah.
Most of the dads stay on one side and the girls all stay on the other. couple slow songs they get together or whatever and they call it a day.
Okay, so don't hate me. I have a husband
Mm-hmm.
and I have a daughter. Did not hear anything about this.
Yeah.
So where am I missing all of these events?
So I'm going to be really honest with you. We do a lot of things as a Parks and Rec department. One of the things that has been commented on in our master plan and beyond is communicating those things. Our social channels are great to follow. They also get really inundated. I looked the other day, there was one Friday where there were 8 posts that went out, just because we're trying to promote everything and doing so much. So oftentimes what happens a lot when people say, I haven't heard about something, is that we've posted it at some point, but that feed is just so full. So the best way is if you go to Pflugerville events calendar, it'll show you all the events that are on the calendar from now until the end of the year. Obviously not all of the programs are on there yet. But as the month goes, that's where I pull our list of things from, is that events calendar, and I try and do it a month out to give everyone a heads up. But that's really the best place to go and see what's scheduled for that next month.
It was on the city's overall weekly newsletter as well.
Yeah, the key.
The key,
The
yeah.
worst thing about posting on Facebook is that it was fairly recently, but they changed some of their algorithms where just because you're following someone doesn't mean you see it, and you got to like become like a fan of us and tell it to do all these other things. And I'm barely on social media, so I don't know any of it. But it used to be easier that a group you were following posted something on social media and it came up in your feed. That's not necessarily the case now. So you almost have to be more proactive as well. And so when we're posting things,
Do you post in community impact for some of those things?
Some of the bigger ones like Daddy-Daughter Dance normally don't make it. It's more of the special events that make that. So Slice, Music in the Park, those kind of things. So, and to reinforce that, Comms every year does a survey that they report to council. And as of recently, over the last couple of years, the way that people have said they've found out about most of our programming is through our website. So that's the unfortunate part, is that someone having to go to that website and look for those things. Social media has slowly it's still up there, but it's slowly kind of gone down from where the website is because people are specifically going and looking for it.
The key is nice because it's a lot of like the medium level stuff kind of falls into that one.
yeah, and we may be able to get y'all all just added to the key, so then you get that one email a week.
I was just gonna say, do we have a city Google Calendar? Have we considered something like that?
No, I don't. I don't think we. So comms runs a lot.
Yeah.
So comms obviously runs the website. They run our social media page. We're allowed to update things. So I don't think it's a Google calendar.
It's not a Google calendar, but it does kind of function like that.
Yeah, so right, and I think the benefit is that, let's say they did decide to create a Google Calendar, people can add it or subscribe to
Oh, and then
that
it goes right
calendar,
to
and
their
then that
calendar.
way it automatically populates. And it could be a nice marketing push, like a marketing moment, in the sense that, okay, we've created a Google Calendar. If you want to stay, updated on the city's latest events, just subscribe to the calendar, and it'll automatically populate, and it'll be there. So that could be something to consider.
Yeah, we'll pass that on to them.
Or I was just thinking, you just said that there was 8 posts that went out. If you do like on the first, or on, I shouldn't even say that, like the 28th, if you do a whole month view post, does that make sense? And then
Yeah.
you can like highlight, but just to give everybody like that real heads up on like, this is what's coming next month. And
Yeah.
if you consistently post it at the same time, then they know when to look there.
Yeah.
So that's at the mercy of comms, but yeah, that's something we can talk to them about.
Yeah, we'll pass that on. And this is the good thing about being on the Parks Commission is, as professionals, that's always our goal, is to figure out how to cut through, I don't want to say noise, that's not the right word, but how to get this information to the people who want to go. And that's a constant struggle for every Parks and Rec department. But if y'all have ideas, I mean, y'all are the people who we are marketing to. So if you have an idea of how someone like you might find it, we're always open to hear that.
And just an additional point on the Google Calendar, you can set up the events in a way where they would automate notifications to folks. And so again, it would just reinforce the message.
This is blowing my mind. I don't know any of this.
Because I will say, if you go to the city events calendar, before you click on Parks and Rec, it lists everything that the library, us,
Right.
anyone
And
is
that's
doing.
why I don't go, because
Yeah.
I'm like, now it's like too much.
Yeah, it can be a little overwhelming.
And I'm like, I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't need
Right.
that. What I need is things, or what I'm interested in is for ages X, Y, and Z. Now, what do you have for that? And I am looking for a quick answer on that,
Absolutely.
not having to dig through a calendar to find a calendar to find
Yeah.
a committee to find
Yeah.
events.
Absolutely.
And y'all have 5 key functions as we see it, this board, right? So y'all are a tree care advisory board quarterly. You approve CIP, which Jeff's gonna talk about later. You make recommendations on parkland dedication to planning and zoning. You do Deutschenfest, you're the Deutschenfest committee now, and then you advise this leadership team on Parks and Rec. You're the conduit between the city and us. So this is definitely right in y'all's purview of things that we need to be hearing about, so thank you. Oh, okay.
So next up is Music in the Park. So this is a annual outdoor concert series held at Pfluger Park. It runs March through June. It is free. You can bring your chairs, pets, blankets, picnics. The only thing you can't bring is glass bottles. Please leave your glass bottles at home. We will have a food truck there, G's 183 Pit Stop. They do like American kind of comfort food / burgers, those kind of things. And then the March artist, kind of fitting that theme, is Hill Country Revival, which is a country group. They're local. They're from New Braunfels, so they're from right down the road. This is normally our smaller kind of performers who we try and source a local performer, someone who people will have heard of.
Where in Pfluger Park is it set up?
So the stage is set up right behind there. You'll see is the volleyball court. So it's set up so that the sound goes out towards those trees, and you can set up wherever you want to. This is before time change, so plan accordingly. It could be a little sun, but once time change, flips over. It gets a little better.
The sun hits those trees and it's all shaded, it's great.
Yeah.
Is the food truck the same food truck throughout the series, or just for March?
No, we try and rotate it as often as we can. It does depend on the food truck schedule. So if they're the only ones available, we'd rather have something than nothing, but we do try and kind of switch it up every so often. Gotcha.
Can we get that schnitzel truck back at some point?
Schnitzel.
We are so excited that we have that connection for Deutschenfest. So, save the date here. Eggpalooza is coming up. This is what Shane refers to as his chorizo and egg and cheese taco.
That's right.
It's the thing that everyone does, but it's really the chance where you get to show how you love on and care for your community. So we feel that we're really intentional and that we have one of the best chorizo, egg, and cheese tacos in Central Texas. The times are TBD right now because of that. We're being very intentional about what time. Last year we did time slots, and there was a little bit of overlap. We didn't really like how that worked out, so we're kind of going back to the drawing board on that. It's at 1849 Park at the soccer fields. It includes an adaptive egg hunt, traditional egg hunts. The Easter Bunny will be there, face painters. We normally do like balloon installations. There was a food truck last year that did kind of like a broad variety of foods. The adaptive hunt is one of my favorites. That's for anyone with special needs or disabilities. We saw last year a lot of people who were in wheelchairs who, and not even just the participants, but sometimes the parents. Yeah. And it can be really hard when there were over 3,000 people at this egg hunt. So like, it can be really challenging when you're limited in your mobility to kind of have to fight for eggs with everyone. We do hold eggs back so that we can make sure no one leaves our event crying, but that's just one more intentional step of doing that adaptive hunt where they get to participate and they're not having to get caught at the end. They're getting that intentional at the front end. And that's all for programs. Does anyone have any thoughts, feedback, concern?
Does the egg hunts, are they divided by like age at all?
Yeah. They are, yes. There's 3 flights normally. I don't remember the ages it may change a little bit too depending on what time slots we do, but we'll be communicating all that, and that'll be in our next.
And is that like a sign up, or is that just a come?
It's just a come, yep, and it is a rain or shine. We if it's thundering or lightning, we obviously won't be doing an egg hunt like out on the fields, but we are not canceling this thing. You will get eggs somehow when you show up. We'll figure it out.
Throw a bunch of eggs in the car window.
Yeah, I call Shane the mad scientist because my first year that I was here, it had rained all week leading up to it, flooded the fields, and Shane asked if we could rent a helicopter to hover over the fields and blow the water off. So like, that's how committed we are to the Eggpalooza. It is rain or shine. You will get eggs somehow if we have to force you to take them.
My only year in Hutto, it rained downpour. Every agency in Central Texas canceled, and we set up a drive-through where you drove through. In the first station, you had a pop-up tent, and you got to touch the Easter Bunny. Easter Bunny got to touch you. He'd lean in and take photos. Next one you got the eggs, and we had a church that was donating hot dogs and chips, and of course they had already made them. So that third one was a baggie with hot dogs and chips that we were just it was a drive-through, and we backed up 79 from all the people outside of all the other areas, and the chief was mad at me that day. But no, this is one of those events, and Jonathan said the chorizo. You can judge a Mexican food restaurant based on, I say a chorizo, egg, and potato taco, and because there's so many different ways that you can make the potato and the egg and the chorizo, and a lot of our colleagues in the field, and then just churches and other groups that do egg hunts, they just throw a bunch of eggs out there, and if you're late, you're late, and a lot of people leave crying or sad, or a kid gets knocked over, and we talk about being intentional and loving on a community and making sure they're seen. And we pull 500 eggs aside for every round. And so that single parent or that family that was flustered or late or got caught by a train and they're driving through on 2 of their 4 tires trying to get to the parking lot, and we've said go. If you've ever seen an egg hunt, we'll throw 30,000 eggs out there. That's 10,000 around potentially, and they're gone in a minute. And so if you're parking when we're throwing eggs, by the time you get your kids unbuttoned and you sprint to the field, those eggs are gone. And we've trained our lifeguards and our part-time staff and all of our volunteers to look for people crying. And that's because we want them to know that even months before they had their bad moment, before they had a moment where they were having to look at their kids and say, you're not going to get eggs, we thought about them. And that we set aside those eggs. And that when they come running towards us crying, or the kids are crying because the youngest kid in that age group got bumped or knocked over by the oldest kid in that age group, that we got them. And that anytime you see a kid crying, our staff walks up to him and says, what happened? Oh, my kid got knocked over and lost all his eggs, and a bunch of kids picked him up. Cool. I'm sorry that happened. Go to the fence line. We're going to throw eggs just for you. Why are you crying? Well, we got here late. There was a traffic jam. Don't worry. Go to the fence line. And as the 10,000 eggs have been thrown and those 1,000 kids pick them up, as they matriculate out of that space, we allow everyone to leave, and then we take those 5, 10, or 8 families, and we throw 500 eggs for them, and that little group gets their own little egg hunt. And then as we're doing that, another section of our staff are filling up the next field for the next flight. But no one leaves our egg hunt sad. That's why I say it's like a chorizo egg potato tacos, because I think you can judge somebody. We like to say we don't want to be judged on our outcome. We want to be judged on our intentions. That's the way we care about this community. And so, we may not have the most viral egg hunt, or we may not have the biggest egg hunt, but we're going to have an egg hunt where every one of those 3,000 people felt seen. They felt like we thought about them, and that when they showed up, that we were thinking about them from the time they got there to the time they left. And so that's the goal of our staff. So egg hunt, as you can tell for me, is a pivotal part of how I judge a park and rec department. And the ones that just throw them out and sorry you were late, I judge those folks quite harshly, to be honest. I don't care if 8,000 people showed up to that event. If 3,000 people walk away sad, I don't think you put on a quality event. And so we're super intentional about it. My staff knows that rain or shine, we're giving out eggs. People are going to be happy at the end of that day. So
It's how we keep community first, and it's one of the things that makes us first class.
if I couldn't find that helicopter, I was going to light that field on fire. We were going to dry those fields off somehow. So, in fact, we had done it in an area that was lower.
Yeah.
That's why we do where we do them now, because 1849 is literally the highest park in the park system. And we used to do it in a lower park, and when it started raining, I said, we just got to go to the highest ground possible. It'll be drier quicker than the other fields will be dry somewhere else in our park system, and then we've done it at Finnegan ever since. So we are here to serve the community, and my staff, they know that.
Also, where's your favorite chorizo egg and potato taco?
La Popular in Abilene. That's my favorite place.
too far
That's
away.
I know.
Local.
It's not harsh he judges.
Oh, I like, Taco House.
Okay.
Taco House is great too, though. Oh, look at this. This is your slide. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just for you, Tracy.
Yeah. Everyone else take a beat.
So we just have a couple project updates because we're going to talk about some of the others that are sort of in the works during the CIP update. But 1849 Park Phase 2 is getting there. We are just about at substantial completion for the facility. It'll probably finish up in the next 2 weeks, and then in order to have grass through the season, we're letting it establish a little bit, and we'll be playing on these things the last part of March. But it's looking beautiful. We're really excited about it. There's a couple more. So you see the baseball fields are looking pristine. There's even a baseball play surface that's going to have turf on it, that what looks like concrete
Ready for
lump
people
there.
to be doing
So yeah, so here's what's and I need to make sure we got these in. When we did the early design on this, there's these bollards that were baseballs, and it's like, hey, I know I've done this for a long time. I know a lot of softball folks. Some of those need to be green, and so they figured out some way to make some of those bollards softballs. So we'll just say that could be a white softball with red laces.
My heart is here. I don't care.
We were trying to do both. We were trying to.
I just know that they will.
Yep.
They
They
will
both
have
have
comments.
laces. So the turf, what's gonna go on that
Yeah.
lump there is gonna be green.
Okay.
So we can say it's both. Yep. Dugouts look great. They've got even this like wood paneling under. I mean, this place is beautiful.
So
Maybe we
really
should take a
excited
tour
about
of
that.
all of our new stuff. Just
Yeah.
like a work session on a Saturday and just maybe talk about
Zach,
some questions y'all
baseball
have,
games.
Parkland
Yeah.
education or
Yeah.
whatever. If we want to, and then we just go out and hit some parks and show you what we've done.
Yeah, with tacos.
Yes, now we're talking.
He's got
Lightning notification just got installed today.
lightning notifications there.
Nice.
And then our other park that we'll talk about here in the project updates is Kelly Lane Park. That's what it looked like on the left, probably about a month ago, when that aerial was taken. That's about what it looks like right now, but it is still on track for a May 2026 completion once you get that groundwork done. All the stuff on top's a lot faster. But that one is still on track, so we're excited about that as well.
Okay. And then last, what was that 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, we were at our state association is the Texas Recreation Park Society. That's where our members, that's where our team gets their professional development. So we have a conference this year. It was at Corpus Christi, and we actually won a couple awards. So this one is the Lone Star Legacy Park Award. It highlights Pfluger Park and the 50 years that Pfluger Park has served that community. You can see we had all of our staff up there for that. And then Mayor Doug Weiss was there to accept the award as well, and displayed it in front of council Tuesday night. And then on the left, we also won the
Park Design
Park
Excellence.
Design Excellence Award. That's one award handed out for one park design a year. This was for Stonehill Park. And so we've won the marketing excellence for the master plan. We won the planning award for the master plan. We won the gold medal for the best department in the state. We won the park design. The only one left to win is for us in the next couple of years will be the recreation facility design, which we feel we're in a pretty good space for with the Monarch opening. So we're very proud of what this department has been able to do the last couple of years. And then to the right, one of the cool things that they do is every region, and we have a central region, a north region, a southeast, and a west. So we have 5 regions total. The operations teams go out and compete at what they call their park maintenance rodeo. And they compete in skills that are very similar. So it's irrigation, plant ID, truck and trailer, nail hammer, nail drive, backpack blower, backhoe. There's one other. What? Zero turn mower. Yep. And we had these 3 guys qualify from the region to state, so they competed at the state conference, and that's Eddie, Wayne, and Kevin. And they didn't place at state. They got really close, but I was more proud of the effort they showed and how they were great with all their competitors and cheered everybody on. And you should know that they represented your community very well. So it was a successful week for us for sure.
And did they get a hooks game out of it?
They didn't, but they got to go on the field, eat some food. I don't think they did it, but you could have done home run derby or whatever. Jeff's the incoming president. He got inducted as the president, and so our chair. What do they call you? King. He's the next king, or whatever they call him. And then
Also, you should know it's the Texas Recreation and Park Society.
What'd I say?
Not parks.
I don't care.
So you're a board member now.
No S.
No S.
Take it away from me if you want.
You can have it.
Now,
Okay, I'll take this.
the next item is item 4B, discussion regarding the Parks and Recreation 5-year CIP or Capital Improvement Program.
So one of those 5 core tenets that y'all get to do is y'all get to make a recommendation. Ultimately, it goes all the way up to council with y'all's recommendation for the parks 5-year CIP, Parks and Rec. This is a 2 meeting agenda review. So the first one is discuss only. That's tonight. Just going to lead you through our recommendation. Y'all get to think about it, talk about it, ask questions about it. Next meeting, it'll be a discuss and consider. If y'all want to make a recommendation, if y'all want to add something, change something, that's y'all's time to do it. This is y'all's recommendation as a board to ultimately planning and zoning, and then the finance team. And does it go to finance and budget? Is that a committee anymore?
It goes to The SIAC.
Yeah.
It's the Capital Improvement Advisory.
Capital improvement. And then ultimately that recommendation goes to city council and they, get a chance to approve it and put it in the general fund budget for, the next year.
Yeah, and so one thing to note importantly here is obviously y'all's is a recommendation, but even city council, when they vote on the 5-year CIP, they are not funding 5 years worth of capital improvement projects. They're ultimately asked to fund 1 year. And then this is just looking at the future. This is seeing what we have that we need to find funding for in the future. But things can change. Projects can get moved back. Projects can get moved up sometimes depending on funding. But this is just a plan. I mean, some of the projects that were on here weren't on here last year, and so
Yeah.
it can evolve over that 5-year period.
living
But this is
document.
sort of our commitment to what projects we want to see within Parks and Recreation for the next 5 years. So, again, this is not approving this quite yet. This is just a discuss only item. So we'll walk through each project. I'll show you the funding and how we have that laid out year over year for the next 5 years. Okay. So for starters, there's 2 projects that are on our 5-year CIP that are still 2020 bond projects that we're moving into. And so the reason they're on here is because they still have funding into the next 5 years. These are funded through the 2020 bond. The first is Lake Pflugerville Phase 2. We've talked about this as we've done. We did the project update last month. But design will begin, it says February, March. Design's going to probably begin in April on this. And as a reminder, this is the northern portion of the lake around the beach, so expanding playscapes and other amenities in that area. It's also adding a trailhead on Silent Harbor Loop with some additional parking, and then the boardwalk in this wetlands area right outside of this new trailhead. And so this is a $10.6 million project. As you'll see, we do expect, because of this is such a robust project, we do expect design to start this year. Most of this is still design funding, and then at the end of 2027 to go into construction, and that's not going to be a short process. So you've got funding all the way to 2029.
So as Parks Commission, you may get questions from the community. Why do we do a 2020 bond and we still don't have the park in 2029? It's a capacity issue. It's unrealistic to approve over $100 million in improvements, and those all be between the rec center and all the previous improvements that we did in 2020, and for those to all be built 1 year after you approved it, right? First of all, you don't want to call on all that debt, because then y'all start paying taxes on it if you're not ready to do those projects. Second of all, these projects are massive in some capacity or another, take a lot of design and engineering, and we have 2 CIP staff, 1 CIP project manager and 1 inspector in parks. And so they are phased out at a capacity rate because we have done the trail gaps. We're wrapping up all the neighborhood parks. You see the vertical part of the rec center. 1849 as well. And so there are projects being completed, but that also means there's always going to be something at the tail end of that completion cycle. Something's going to get done first, something's going to get done in the middle, something's going to get done at the end. And Lake Pflugerville is the one that's getting done at the end. Another reason for that is Lake Pflugerville at the time of the 2020 bond wasn't complete from phase 1 from the 2016 bond. So I still had to finish those bond funds Junior, when that finished, 2021? Yeah, so the bond happened in 2020 for phase 2, but I hadn't even completed phase 1 yet. So you don't go straight into phase 2 with the lake. You want to see how it's used and how things are you assess what usage patterns and things like that for the improvements that you've done for phase 1 before you go to phase 2. So
And we talk about this with transportation projects a lot. We don't. Transportation talks about this with those projects a lot, that you may not see a lot of the work that's being done, but it is being done. And so
design,
even and
RFQ.
just design, but the RFQ to get to design. You
Yeah.
know, we have all of our posting requirements, and we've got to
Interviewing architect
We've got to
firms
interview
and
the firms,
engineering and yeah.
negotiate with them on the scope of work that they're going to be performing. So this has started. This process has started. It's not the construction point yet. That's going to be in a year and a half or 2 years. Design, because this is a 2014 master plan, you know, there's going to be quite a bit of public engagement to make sure, you know, I don't even anticipate it's going to look a whole lot like this, because we're going to get public engagement and they're going to say, no, that's not what we want. We want a different type of amenity than was outlined in 2014, right? And so,
I have a question, maybe this is a dumb question, but
no dumb questions.
it might be. When you're looking at the cost and the years, those are just gonna increase.
Yep.
So then what you're getting is going to decrease. And we saw that with
Potentially.
1849. It was originally supposed to be 6.
Yep.
Then it moved to 3.
Yep.
Same thing here, right?
Well, and yeah, and we're dealing with, so in any year, yes. When your bond is in 2020,
Right.
even more so.
Right.
And so what we're going to have to decide is some of these major expansion ideas that were in 2014. One in particular, which we have already had discussions with council about, is this is expanding the beach. This is the existing beach right here. Our recommendation is that we don't do this. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is cost, and one is the way the beach is utilized during peak season. And it's, if y'all have been out there, it's a party. It's not a family-friendly environment. It's not a place you're taking your family. And so, is it a good idea to expand the beach at the expense of expanded
That's what-
amenities that could be used year-round? Right, and would make it more a destination for residents. And so, some of those conversations, some of that stuff may work out okay, because yeah, we don't have this cost, and so now we can invest that here with the money we have, despite inflation. But that is a concern, and so what we typically try to do, and I do think they did this in 2020, is you work in inflation to when you think this is going to be built. So 10.6, the estimate on this in 2019 was construction costs were somewhere around 6.5 million. So they did work in that this is not going to get completed for a couple of years. There's some inflation. There's some inflationary justification for why it's 10.6 and not 6.5. But 2020, 2021,
Right.
2022 on construction costs were really rough.
Right.
So there is some value engineering that has to happen. That, or there's a second part to phase 2 that's future funded. If we really want something, if this boardwalk turns out to be 4 times more expensive than we thought, but it's really important, then that's when we go to council and say, this is something the community wants. We need to find additional funding.
Is that something that the money that we get from the fee and lieu that we voted on earlier could also go into help fund that as well?
we could.
Potentially, and I will say, you know, on projects like this, what we have in those coffers is not enough. It could offset, you know, if some of the play areas, some of the larger things, it's
Not
a lot of
exactly.
investment for maybe not.
Yeah, it's a tenth of that total.
Yeah.
So like, it could be the difference between 3 play street features or 4, but it's not gonna be the difference between a play feature, no play feature at all, or whatever, or a boardwalk or no boardwalk at all.
Yeah, and we got, 1849, we got pretty clear instructions from our council to let them know when costs have risen. And so if there's things we have said, you know, we've told the community that we're going to supply, and then construction costs have made that more difficult, to let them know. And so that's what we have been doing on projects moving forward. And we've come in under on a couple, 1849, you know, just if you take off the value engineering we did off the top, the project itself for the 3 fields came under what we thought it was going to. Not enough to get 3 more fields, not nearly enough to get 3 more fields. But, so we've gotten a little bit better. Inflationary construction costs have,
But I mean, 2020 threw a different ballgame
it was,
that nobody saw coming.
Yeah, we had 2019 prices going into a 2020 bond, and then it just, the bond passed, and then COVID happened, and it shot way
it was
up.
poor timing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tough for us.
and no one could have anticipated it.
No.
So,
This might not be realistic, but is there a way to divide the phases of the project such that like different I guess milestones can be delivered iteratively for residents.
But potentially, and that's something that we're gonna get into with the design team, so we'll have more details on that once we do that. The first part of this project that we baked in, because of all these plans are so old at this point, is a feasibility study. And just a quick story on this beach that's existing here was built by staff.
Junior.
Junior staff.
Blame Junior.
And so when we were talking to our engineering team about that, they said they were mouth agape, just couldn't believe that. So they're going to go in and sort of look at some of the, I'm sure Junior did a great job, but they're going to go in and look at like some of the structural elements of that. And, but also they're going to look at the feasibility of like, okay, can we provide this trailhead first?
Right.
Easily, and then, yeah, so I can't answer that right now because I'm not nearly smart enough nor qualified. But I'm in a fun position that I get to hire people that are a lot smarter.
We'd love to get wins.
That's what that's what I was thinking, like quick wins, especially like
100%.
for residents if they're asking what's going on. It could
Yeah,
be-
so when this says 2029, I mean, that is full completion.
Right.
Yeah. So we may be able to deliver some of these things earlier.
Actually, that was kind of my question. Is like, where does procurement like occur in this timeline? I mean, obviously you have to have like designs finalized, but I assume that's kind of
For construction?
yeah. I mean, that's kind of a phased approach where again, trail on the back you could probably finalize pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably, so the problem with some of that is you lose economies of scale. So if we said, no, design this trailhead in the first 3 months, we want to go out to construction, that trailhead's going to cost more than if you bid that project together. So,
And another thing to talk about timelines. There's two ways to think about a bond program. So the council has called for a 2026 bond council. So they've each elected 2 people. The mayor got to elect 3. Those citizens who don't serve on any other board are sitting on this bond council, and they're going to hear staff's recommendations for a 2026 bond. They're going to make a recommendation to city council what should be on the vote and what shouldn't. In that process, we can do it one or two ways. We can say we need a second phase of destination, because right here, Jeff's got destination play space is 2 phases. We only can afford 1 phase. So we're going to put the second phase up for that bond council to make a recommendation. The voters would love to see some beautiful design that they would vote on. Instead of me just saying, hey, we need a second phase of destination. Here's this incredible park. Look at this design. Look at this choo-choo train. And this goes into the trees.
there won't
and-
be a choo-choo train.
No, there's going to be a choo-choo. Anyways,
My son would love it if there's a choo-choo train.
see?
This is the first time I'm hearing it.
See?
And you're already saying
There won't
no?
be a choo-choo train.
You didn't even hear it.
I've heard it from Shane enough.
There's PTSD for the eagle and Zilker or
Right,
something.
right. Yeah, there's all these incredible things.
Go to Zilker if you want a choo-choo train.
So there's all these incredible things that you decide to vote on. But that might cost the city
Now the public's gonna say they want
$250,000 to design, to pay for public engagement. So we could pay for that, and then the voters could vote it down. And we were just out $250,000 and it didn't amount to anything. And so we're not in that phase right now. So we're taking conceptual ideas to the voters, but in that process, because I don't have a design on the shelf day one, once the vote is approved, I have to go now get a design. So that's a 1.5-year process in and of itself. So you can't start bidding out something that you don't have a design for, that the public hasn't approved, that council hasn't bought in for. And so these bonds could go quicker if the residents wanted to pay for potentially $1 million in 5 different design plans for 1849 and Destination Play and Lake Pflugerville Phase 3 and all these other stuff. But you could potentially pay $1 million of your tax dollars for projects that don't get voted on and approved, and then they're just sitting on the shelf. Or you could wait till they get approved, then start the design, public engagement, that process. But now you're 18 months further down the road.
Right, so either way, it's, you lose one or you lose
Right.
another.
Yeah.
Because even at those 18 months down the road, your prices have changed.
It's gone up.
Your modern has changed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
welcome to governance. It's a lot of fun, isn't it?
And we have
Oh,
a
yeah,
couple of
it
examples
is.
of different ways that you can do that without full plans in our projects, but there's also some examples. Destination Play is one. We don't have a master plan even for this, but we have enough engagement from our master plan, our department-wide master plan. One, for the need for this Destination Play type space, and then also the use of Bolts Park, which we've already discussed, to upgrade it to something like this. So Destination Play, as a reminder, Bowles Park, there's 2 phases to this. Phase 1 is funded from the 2020 bond. We've already gone out and done the RFQ for design. We have interviews in a couple weeks for the design teams. Again, this is sort of creating a destination Central Park space within Pflugerville that's not only great for residents, also it helps to attract people from across the region, and that speaks to the sort of economic driver piece of this. Downtown East and Destination Play will feed into each other, so you'll have people that come to Downtown East and then discover that they can go out to Destination Play. You'll have people that come for Destination Play, realize they can go over to Downtown East and walk the trail system, never even have to cross the street. Phase 1, $5 million, that's funded through the 2020 bond. We have that. Phase 2 is a future project, is not currently funded. But we expect this park at full build out to be somewhere around 17 million. So we're asking for 12.8 in the next phase of that. And I talked about this last month, but we've used, this is downtown Cary Park in Cary, North Carolina. Very similar idea. They had this green space right in the middle of town, right in the middle of their downtown area that they transformed into what you see here. And so it's a play space for everybody. You've got play elements. I don't even have pictures of it here. You've got some of that. Then they have playgrounds. But you've got elevated walkways. You've got this area where people can gather. It's a sign for a bar. They have a dog park bar, and then they've got some, sort of event lawn and things like that. But they sort of use this space for the exact same purpose that we're thinking about utilizing Bowles, which is driving people to this area. And then what they saw was increased economic activity, with businesses wanting to be close to that, people wanting to move to that area, and so that's our hope with Destination Play. This is funded, the Gillen Creek Trail Corridor Master Plan. So kind of going back to the conversation we were just having, we have an incredible trail corridor along Gillen Creek, all the way from Grand Avenue to here, where you never again have to cross a street, go under streets and around them. And quite a few parks. You've got Windermere Park, Finnick Park, Pfluger Park, downtown, and Bowles Park, all connected by that trail system. And so we've got a department-wide master plan, but what this would do is really hone in on that segment of our trail system and those parks, and create concepts for improvements to those parks, for different trail amenities, and then placemaking, so spaces that you would want to go see, whether that's public art, play amenities, anything like that, gathering spaces along that. And so then future, none of these projects are on our 5-year CIP because they haven't been identified yet, but future asks in our 5-year CIP would be based on this master plan once we complete it, so that we can upgrade Windermere Park, Pfluger, Finnick. We can increase the want, I guess, to go to follow that downtown. So having placemaking all the way up and down this trail, so that you can just walk straight to Downtown East or existing old downtown. This will include public engagement. This will include existing conditions. It's very similar. If y'all have, again, bored yourself enough to read our park system master plan, it's going to be a very similar process, but just targeted to this space. We're about to go, the RFQ for this is about to go out in the next month. Our annual trail improvements is a sort of evergreen ask in our CIP. For several years now, we've gotten about 1.2 million each year for trail improvements. This is not trail repairs. This is new trails. filling trail gaps. So going back to what we were saying, if earlier with development, if there's two developments that come, close to one another, but then there's a gap in that, we can use these funds to connect if development is not going to
What
eventually
funds
connect
do you
those two.
use to repair?
That's our operations and maintenance. We've got 250,000, 300,000?
300, we have 250 for concrete DG and 100,000 for goats.
Yeah, yep. The goats are important. So all of our trail maintenance and repairs is in the O&M, operations and maintenance budget. So this is all for new. This is guided by the mobility master plan that we mentioned earlier that requires trails. It also has, so some of the trails in the mobility master plan are going to be constructed with development, and then some of it's on us. And so instead of just simply utilizing the flat, $1.2 million that we've gotten, we had an engineering firm create a 5-year plan to meet sort of the goals of the mobility master plan where we can construct. And so we now have, over the next 5 years, what the cost of those trail segments is going to be, to include contingency for inflation. And so some years are going to be a little bit more than others. There's some substantial projects we're going to be working on. Some include pedestrian bridges and things like that. So when you see some of these higher numbers, that's because it's a more substantial amount of trails. For 2026, we're actually only increasing our trail mileage by 0.3 miles, but it's pretty expensive because one of them is a pedestrian bridge. Several of them have to deal with like electrical easements and having to go around some things. And so it's really important connections that are a little bit pricey. And so we're dipping into more complex projects with this now.
On what basis are trail expansions prioritized?
So the mobility master plan has a priority list. Now, I will say, we went in and tried to fit in, I don't think this happened, but let's say the top 5, were gonna be $30 million. Well, we tried to fit in projects that are a little smaller, move those up so that we can, disperse that funding ask over 5 years, while trying to keep what we found in public engagement the highest priority. But we didn't want to front load or back end load the heavy projects. 1849 Park Phase 3 is essentially this northern portion of 1849 Park butting up to Carmel. Again, this is 2016 was when the 1849 Park Master Plan was finalized and adopted. So we're going to have some work to do once we get into design on that. This is an unfunded project as it stands, but our plan is, as long as we get the funding, to start this in 2027. So the project includes improved natural areas, so that's here, interpretive education amphitheater, a destination playground, nature trails, wildflower and prairie preserve, and then tennis and pickleball courts, which you'll see on this side. This is future Melbourne Lane that goes through right. This is existing 1849. This is about where the baseball fields are. You can see how much has changed when we actually got out there and did site work, and things had to be moved around because this is a lot hillier than I think they thought when they did this plan.
Looks pretty flat up there.
Yeah, you would think. You would think. This is, we've talked about that. This is not prime for baseball fields. And this is not big enough, unfortunately. The original master plan, again, going back to, I think, some public engagement, I think we would see this is not what they wanted, included a 2,000-seat amphitheater and festival grounds in this area. Staff recommendation, that's not the best use of the space any longer. So what we're going to focus on is almost this eastern portion of 1849, this almost being like a state park.
So does that go back to community engagement then?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We'll go back, so in design.
So you start all over again.
Not all over again. I mean, we'll use some of the principles here, obviously. We don't have to decide whether this should be a nature area. We know that is. Now we want to find out what people actually want, right? And so it'll still be pretty extensive. We do public engagement really well in Pflugerville, and so we're going to try to continue that. But we're not going to rework the whole system. Obviously, you can see pickleball courts are something that's going to hang around because this is 10 years ago and people still want it, so they were right on that. But yeah, we're basically going to go to the public and ask, is this still along the lines of what the community wants in this space? We think for being the trail capital of Texas, we don't have a lot of nature trails. We've got a lot of, we've got a robust system of 10-foot concrete sidewalks, which is incredible. This is going to be one of our first sort of entries into having, single track nature trails for hiking, things like that.
Jeff, where's Carmel on that map?
Right here. And then some over here, a little bit. And so we're looking at that being about a $17.5 million project. That's using 2016 numbers and applying inflation to it. Reunion Park. This is a park that was identified in the Aspire 2040 Comprehensive Plan. This is located in the Historic Colored Edition. And so this park celebrates sort of the history of that subdivision, pays homage. From our understanding, there's been a lot of reunions, community gatherings held throughout the history of Pflugerville in that area. And if you've been there recently, it's not quite the spot that you're right next to like a car lot or whatever. So we want to go back to this area and create a space for that same purpose, for folks to host reunions, folks to host community gatherings, but also to pay homage to the history of this space. So like what you see here, this was I can't remember I think this is North Carolina. This was a playground that they designed to sort of celebrate the African American heritage of that community. And so we would look to do similar things like that. Again, unfunded project, starting in 2027. We expect this project to be about $5 million. Old Town Park. This project would be guided by the Old Town Park Master Plan. You can see the rendering of Old Town Park here. The idea was that we would create a vibrant, mostly passive space that celebrates the historic water tower and Old Town Park, which is one of our oldest in our system. This would include site rehabilitation, pedestrian pathways, seating, and small gathering areas, and then integrated play and discovery elements. So thinking a little bit outside of the, sort of like destination play, thinking outside of just the traditional, we throw a playground in, put some benches, stuff like that, and having integrated play elements. That sort of, the master plan, if y'all, for the folks that were on commission last year or 2 years ago, will remember, the design sort of tells the story of water in our community. And so sort of the source here going all the way to the capture system, and then south here is some native plant areas, pollinator gardens and things like that, sort of talking about the use of water. And our hope and design of this facility is that it's a discovery play type of thing where you could go here, take your kids here 10 times, and each time you sort of discover something new at the space.
Does the trail system on that side of Pecan currently connect to the trail system on
Nope.
the north side? Is
Nope.
there plans
So
for that
this
at
is
some point?
this is part of so they included in the master plan sort of where we could connect, create sidewalks essentially to connect to this from downtown and then to the eastern trail. What is that trail called on the east over there?
No.
Is the one near the school?
It has a name. There's a trail system on the eastern portion of Old Town, and so eventually they would like, we would like for that to connect so that you can walk there instead of having to walk on the street.
Is that not part of Pflugerville's existing trail system?
This here?
The one that runs.
It
like,
is. I can't
south
think of the
from-
name of that.
It is. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
This
yeah.
would eventually connect to it.
The one guys that
with
goes by the
sidewalk.
drainage areas and
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
But none of those connect to this.
Fairway?
space.
If you go the storm
Fairway
drain,
trails?
That's probably true.
It's Fairway Trails. Fairway.
Okay.
I'm just thinking with
Creekside and then
the new,
Central Valley.
with the new downtown east coming and the new destination play space at Bulls Park, I mean, you're almost situated like a perfect triangle right there
Oh,
with
yeah.
this one. So if you could figure out a way to connect this to both of those.
The neighborhood has been a little concerned that it's more programmed than they thought it would be. One. Two, you have a couple massive projects that city leadership would like to see vertical before we do a smaller park, like Destination Phase 1, 2, Lake Pflugerville Phase 3, or Phase 3, like 1849 Phase 3, those types of things. And so like, that's why you see it as far away. And they also kind of want to see downtown east impact play out. Maybe you start to see some of these businesses along Pecan Flip, and you start to see sidewalks and things starting to be generated, and then there's a more natural connection point.
Yeah,
So-
and y'all maybe asked some of these questions by the folks in this neighborhood, and I think that there was some things that we overlooked a little bit that were in the master plan that were not our intention, but that made it into the master plan. One is space for, they had a guy playing a guitar here. It is not our intention that we would have a bunch of concerts at this site. That was simply, I don't know, AI generated guy.
Oh, yeah, I think
pushed in here, but this is a
George
mostly-
Strait's not coming to this.
No, he's not. No, he's not. I mean, this is a gathering space, and there's a lot of passive elements. The design team that worked on this master plan, one, we told them to think big, and so they did. This is an elevated walkway here. There's a net system here where you can kind of lay and lounge, and then there's play elements under it. I will tell you, even in today's dollars, $4.6 million does not get you what's in this picture. And so we have the ability to phase this, we have the ability to tone this down and not have an elevated walkway, but the design elements from this master plan can be changed a little bit. They're flexible. The idea of having seating space for, this is a community like a lot of older neighborhoods that it's got people that have lived there for 50 years, and it's got young families that are moving in. And so the idea behind this space was that you'd have something for everybody. We use the word multi-generational a lot, and that's part of what we were looking at in this space. Lake Pflugerville Phase 3 is our nature center. And so you'll see this is pushed all the way out to 2031, even into 2032. This is, again, not funded, but this is identified in the Lake Pflugerville Park Master Plan. And the Nature Center is going to include education, classroom space, indoor and outdoor event space, community gardens, a greenhouse, additional parking. This will probably be a staffed space. This is a real picture. I think this is in somewhere in East Texas. This is a nature center. This is AI. I said, make this space right at the lake. But we're really excited about what this space could be. It's a little ways out from being funded. This is, again, going back to the 1849 Phase 3, where we don't really have a lot of nature trails. We also don't have a space to do a lot of our nature programming. And so this would allow us to expand into educational programs, nature programs, partnering with the school districts, all that stuff.
Where on the lake would this be situated?
This is at the Bealey House, which is on the western portion of the lake.
When you're heading into the neighborhood, not going to the south side, but you're heading into the neighborhood, Silent Harbor. It's that little property the city owns on the left.
Yeah, there's like horses right next door. Somebody owns a little horse ranch, 3-acre horse ranch.
Sorry, general question. So you're saying these aren't funded, but as plans or as milestones or phases, they've been approved, right? So that's not going to change.
No, this has been on the 5-year CIP. It's part of a master plan, and so
we haven't made it up.
Approved as a project concept. It does not have funding, and so this would be a future bond project. Probably not even on this next bond. This would be, if there's a next round, this would be on that.
Gotcha. I mean, we could put it on this 2026 bond, but it would take our ask from. We think we've right-sized the ask to around 50 million. I think if you had some of the things we showed you that wasn't funded, it'd be another 50 million. So there'd be 100 million, and you still have a lot of transportation projects that this city needs. And so, if we're 100 million and transportation's 150 million, all of a sudden you're looking at a $250 million bond project, and that's just a lot for
sticker shock for
right.
sure.
But if we're 50 million and transportation's 100 million or whatever, then you're like, okay, well, those are things we need and we can do or whatever. And so,
Gotcha. And there's a big future ask. Tracy, this is right up your alley. So
Let's go.
we have nearly completed our athletic feasibility study. Really, we've completed it. It just is awaiting council approval at this point, which will be in April.
At a regular.
What's
meeting?
that?
Is that at a regular meeting?
Yes, yes. And so the athletic feasibility study, we tasked our consultant with looking at our existing athletic facilities and telling us where we're short, and then what the projected or estimated costs of building those facilities would be.
and talking to our
Local
Carol,
organizations.
yes, stakeholders. Yeah.
And so, because we've got so much space in the eastern portions of Pflugerville and then even into the ETJ, it makes sense, one, for those economies of scale we were talking about earlier, to put all of these needs in one space. And so, in a future ask, again, unfunded, currently we've got about $51 million for a complex that has 4 baseball fields, 4 softball fields, and then 4 multi-use sports fields that could be used for anything from soccer, football, cricket, anything like that. So trying to make the most of the space. So the $51 million includes land acquisition for all of the acreage that would be required for this. This is obviously a really large facility, and then construction and design costs. And so you'd also have playgrounds, concessions, restrooms, of course trails, because we can't build something without it. And then all of the parking that goes along with that. And then you'll see here, I can't remember, I think this is in Florida, but a lot of times they'll add additional sort of recreational amenities. You've got some tennis courts, basketball courts, and things like that.
Can Parkland dedication be used for a project like this?
Parkland dedication cannot be used for specialty facilities.
So there's a benefit to the public for any park, right? There's green space and access, but specialty parks, like a BMX park or a sports complex or a drone park or whatever, that's a specialty group of people that benefit from that. And because of that, you can't use development dollars towards the specialties. You can't use 4B, hot tax, some of those types of opportunities. Anything that's an economic driver, you can use those, but you couldn't use the funds that we've been collecting through development.
Yeah, and so this basically gets us about to what the athletic feasibility study says we would need now, so we're behind, what we would need now and then into about like the early 2030s,
Gets us to
2035.
about 60% of our needs for baseball and softball, based on the 2030 number. Because by 2030, that need goes up.
Yeah,
Right.
and again, you gotta think too, we're talking about potentially this being funded, let's say, we do a bond in 2030, I have no idea. That means this facility is probably open in 2035.
Right.
You know, because of all of the process of getting there.
But we don't know where this made-up facility would be.
No, it's cited.
No, we've gotta identify the site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have identified, part of the athletic feasibility study is they identified some parcels that could work for it.
But it's not gonna be anywhere, sorry, I have so many questions on
Yeah.
this. This is probably not the place
Yeah, yeah.
for them.
No, it is.
But in comparison to 1849, where are they looking at?
Well, it's gonna have to be east of that, because it's the only space we would have, it's the only part of town we would have enough space for a facility like this.
And where we could probably still afford it.
And where we could afford it. So we're gonna be heavy on our athletic fields on the east side of town, other than our soccer fields at Wells Point.
But they may be eventually closer towards the middle.
But the area around 1849 is pretty quickly developing.
I'm just
so-
thinking like, I know like in Hutto, right? They kind of built their field here and then they kind of built their field here and they're, now it's pretty close together.
Yeah.
When you're building 8 fields and then you've got 3 fields, then do these 3 fields just fall off and become something else? But really, when you look at the numbers that you need,
Yeah.
you actually need all 11 of those fields.
No, that's a good point. We're not going to be, all the land around 1849 is purchased and going to be developed at some point in the next 10 years or so. So there's nothing we could purchase, even if we had this money now, that would connect it. And I get, so I think the concern there is like, okay, well, I have a kid in T-ball and I have a kid in 12U, now I've gotta be at two different
Well,
sites.
I mean, you can make it work. Is it,
Yeah.
are we talking 10-mile gaps? Are we
I don't think it's gonna be
talking-
that far, I mean,
And I'm
it's gonna
thinking
be
like
miles
tournaments
away.
that can
Who
really
knows?
generate money for the city.
there's different, well, and that's the goal with this too, and Dr. Crompton, we might bring back on because he's done a lot of economic impact work with multi-sport athletic facilities. That's why he's a professor at A&M, he was a council member in College Station, that's why you see College Station has all of these athletic fields to drive tourism, it's because of him. Yeah, so we would try to get these as close to Pflugerville as we can. Now, it depends on, again, land prices, what's available. It depends on what the site looks like. So, 1849 was purchased from the Pfluger family. I think if we were trying to develop as an entire facility, it wouldn't have worked. Like the north part that we just discussed, you cannot put fields there. And so we're gonna have to be really careful about what we choose for this site. So I have no idea. There's a lot of different options.
I know the last time that the study was done, we were already under,
Oh, yeah.
way under, and that was 10, did I say 10 years ago? And we added the 3 fields, but they're not technically done, but, so we were already under 10 years ago. We're still under, like,
Yeah,
it's
what
gonna
I-
keep being.
And I don't know what city, to be honest, has
What growing city has it?
the adequate
Yeah.
amount of fields.
Well-
You're always chasing that.
Round Rock, because they made that
Because
part
of
of
the Golden
their sort of identity years ago. New Braunfels was in a very similar situation. Probably 7 or 8 years ago, they built their first athletic facility, like 8 years ago.
Well, and when you compare us to Round Rock in some ways, you also, sometimes people forget, we're 60 years old and Round Rock's 100 years old almost.
Right.
And so like,
But then does that, again, last question, then I'm gonna shut up.
no, you're good.
Does that then, so when you're looking at creating 8 more fields for just the baseball and softball, plus 4 more multi-use fields, then does that lead into what your park and rec offers? So you have a city run.
I don't know, because you go back to the other question, can we add staff just to run Parks and Rec?
Because
offering?
otherwise, who's gonna use? Yeah, I mean, like, is that just for
I
one-offs? Is
think-
that for select teams?
Well,
Is
I
that-
think
you know what I mean?
I think we're in a world where if we say, hey, we got 3 fields, who wants to use them, we find someone that wants
Oh
to
yeah,
use them.
People will
100%.
run
I mean,
some
select
practices
teams,
and select
teams,
teams,
yeah. And that's where I'm saying, like, then that's where your lower end community families suffer because your
Our
select
goal
teams take
with
this.
this is recreational.
Yeah, our
I mean, you could
mentors.
use it for other things. I mean, you could use those fields for like adult kickball
Yep.
leagues and other random recreational leagues that would benefit.
But that's where I'm saying it
areas that
goes
aren't
back
being
to that
benefited
those
currently.
those fields that are you're already under where you need to be for those numbers, and now they're getting used for other things, but you don't have a program that's run for those. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we don't have a system where our parks department is running youth sports.
Correct.
So I think we would be
And I don't
partnering
think we'll
with
see that.
associations
Sounds like I
that
need
are
a new
running
job.
these facilities.
I get paid
And I,
for.
as a
Finally.
Jonathan and I came from a city where we literally ran the youth sports program.
Well, that's how
and
the
I
city
would-
that I'm from. That's how it is. Like
I,
it all.
cur-
It
and
all
I currently
goes.
run the youth athletics for City of
But that's a
Georgetown.
dinosaur. That's
It's-
And I
becoming
and I would say
extinct.
it's
we're
going out.
we're moving so far away from that.
Ours
As an
actually is
industry.
run through our school, not even the city.
That is something I've never even heard. So
You see it in the
where is
Midwest.
that?
Midwest.
You see it in the
Okay.
Midwest.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, Minnesota have like a.
Is that where they let people that have another full-time job just be high school coaches too? Don't they do
Yeah.
that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Texas
Is
is
there
different.
any plan to renovate the fields right here on Emmanuel?
These are ISD fields,
I see.
The problem is the ISD owns them,
and
and
the ISD doesn't want to sell them because.
Yeah, we're building our first 3 the 1849 is the first 3 baseball and softball fields in our
because the other ones
system.
are Northeast Metro.
And those are Travis County.
I knew those were Northeast Metro. I didn't realize these were ISD.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if they were ours, they wouldn't look like that.
I'm offended.
Just a little.
I live in the neighborhood next to him. I wish they looked a little bit better.
Next place a little bit.
Okay, well, guess
not
what?
to you.
Guess what?
No.
No, here, I'm just gonna, the great thing about them is, it's volunteer driven, so you guys can come put all the time you want
No, I
into
agree.
them.
I agree.
In 3 more years, my son will be there, and then I'll put some volunteer hours in.
How old is he? 'Cause he can start at 2.5.
looking like this right
Oh,
here.
Okay.
We'd have.
My wife has sworn that he's not playing baseball, but we'll figure out how to get
Nah.
out there.
The point of this is, we're getting to where we're doing things we probably should have done 20 years ago.
Right, and I get that,
So-
and that's where I was just asking,
And
like,
when we
does
get
the
to
parks and recs
2035,
we'll have
and this
discussion.
is 2035, and this is constructed, we will also be short again.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
So
saying,
we'll-
like,
We'll always be chasing this
Yeah.
because we are so far behind
Behind.
in 2026. But
Well, we might not always be checking. At some point, build out. We're going to hit build out.
that's true, and
In 2070, we'll catch up.
we'll be there. We'll all be
we
dead.
won't be here.
Those kids are gonna have great facilities. So
Great grandkids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, and I will say I would have to go back and look at the 5-year CIPs after that study was done 10 years ago, but I don't think other than 1849 there was athletic facilities on that. So
not
we're
for baseball and softball,
no,
no.
we're moving ahead of where we were after the previous study. Also, you guys are doing a great job with that.
You're not invited.
Yeah, now that we know that we have to volunteer, you do it.
That's right. Any questions? That's the end of our 5-year CIP. We'll bring this back to you next month.
Think about it. If there's something we're missing, you have an opportunity now to reach out to Lise or staff and say, hey, what about this or what about that? We want a drone park or whatever. Now, it's your recommendation. It'll go through some filters in the process. It may not make it all the way to the CIP by the time council sees it, but you'll have every right and expectation as this board to make your recommendation on the CIP.
Shane, real quick, do you want to remind them how to get something on the agenda?
Yeah, you got to reach out to Elise and say you would like to see something seen on the agenda, and then we will talk about it. And she has the right to make the recommendation to add it or to discuss more with you next time.
Is there a document we can refer back to? Or like these slides? for
Yeah,
example?
so we'll get it to you before the next meeting. We're still finalizing. Honestly, some of these numbers might change in the next 2 weeks a little bit after conversations with the city manager's office. This is just your first sort of stab at asking questions, and then we'll finalize that.
How much ahead of time would you like to see it? Because we're already 1 week behind because we bumped last week to this week. A week?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, for me perfectly.
Yeah. What we can do is when we get ready to post, we can send this information out.
Alrighty. Any other questions about anything? If not, if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:12.